Oh, you're good. All right, guys. Time to go viral. Victor Oladipo had a dunk contest he'd probably like to forget. Lots of missed dunks and a last-place finish, but, oh, how good it could have been.
Have you seen this yet, CC? Watch this dunk. Watch this.
Just post it.
Hold on. See what he did?
Yeah.
He does the 360, and watch the tap. Hold on.
One hand to the other. This was posted by Team Flight Brothers of Oladipo practicing for the competition.
It's hard for me to really, because I'm so mad that he put on the Black Panther mask and couldn't dunk with that thing on. I mean, have you seen Black Panther? I mean, if you can't do that with the mask on, I mean...
Come on, Oladipo, you're letting the culture down, but that was awesome.
Good sight.
I got you, CC. I got you.
When you put on the Black Panther mask, you got to do some stuff.
To whom much is given, much is expected, Victor Oladipo.
Time for some stories to start your morning. According to reports, Drew Brees and the Saints will discuss a new deal at the Combine. Brees is not under contract yet for the 2018 season. However, all indications are that he'll be back in the Big Easy next season. CC, Brees is 39. Has he shown any signs of slowing down?
No, he hasn't. And talking to Sean Payton at the Super Bowl, he was in a suite. He wished he should have been there playing, but the miracle got them bounced in the conference semifinal. So, no, Drew Brees. And right now, he's at a time in his career where he has everything. He's been to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, been MVP, but he has more support now.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Thomas, the wide receiver, so underrated. One of the top 5 guys in the league right now for productivity. The two-headed monster that they have, Kamara and Ingram in the backfield, both of them Pro Bowl players. The offensive line, they give him enough time. Drew Brees is doing less right now than any other point of his when he was in his prime. So, no, Drew Brees has another 2 or 3 years, right, Nick?
And when Chris says he's doing less, he's being asked to do less. He still could do what he was doing before, but the one guy Chris didn't mention another, I believe, Ohio State guy, Marshawn Lattimore. Do I have that right?
Defense, yeah,
they actually have a legitimate defense there. Brady broke the mold on 40-year-old quarterbacks. Brees is going to follow in those footsteps, I would imagine. And this could have gone a different way. Going into this last year, a lot of people thought this could be Sean Payton's last year in New Orleans.
Absolutely.
And Drew Brees' last year in New Orleans. But this is a team that could have won the Super Bowl this past year, so they're going to run it back next year, and they should.
Broncos quarterback Trevor Siemian is reportedly on the trading block. Denver also owns the 5th overall pick in the draft, and Von Miller has been actively campaigning for Kirk Cousins. Lots of options here. Nick, what should the Broncos do with their quarterbacks?
They should go to their president of the team, John Elway, and ask John, what should we do with the quarterback? And then whatever he says, do the exact opposite. Because he has go this way. He says, go this way. Whatever it is. Because they have 3 quarterbacks on their roster. Amazingly, Simeon's the best one, and he is not any good. You've got one guy, a first-round pick in Paxton Lynch, whose goatee doesn't connect. You have another guy in Brock Osweiler, who's, as CeCe would say, tall for no reason. And then there's Simeon. So they got 3 quarterbacks, but no quarterbacks. I don't know what they should do, but it's not what John Elway thinks they should do.
What happens to the trash bin when it gets filled up at your house, Nick? What do you do with it?
Take it to the curb.
Okay, no problem. Let's package all 3 of them bums and try to, because you can't trade one of them. Don't nobody want none of them quarterbacks. Paxton Lynch, right now, what can you get for him? You can't even trade him back to Memphis. Trevor Siemian, right now, you can't even trade him back to Northwestern. And Brock, you can't even give him back to his parents. He's just big for no damn reason. No, they don't even want him right now.
Oh, that's cruel.
Let's talk about some people who can play.
Yeah, time for an Olympic update. Team USA Women's Hockey beat Canada to bring home the Olympic gold for the first time since 1998. The game ended in a thrilling shootout with a goal by Jocelyn Lamoureux. Nick, how excited were you for Team USA?
This was dope. This was one of the best moments of these Olympics. The Winter Olympics, the Team USA does not do nearly as well as we do in the Summer Olympics. This gets more dominated by the Scandinavian countries. But, man, to see the women's hockey team for the first time in 20 years.
First things first.
The first time in 20 years win the gold.
Who dominates in the Winter Olympics, Nick?
We tended, the Scandinavian countries dominate in the Winter Olympics. Canada's women's hockey teams won 4 straight gold medals.
Yes.
Snap that streak. Hold that L, Canada.
Yeah.
And the little triple deke, what I called the hockey Euro step in the shootout, that was awesome.
Yeah, fake it to the left, switching it back over to the right, closing it out. Amazing. Canada is a juggernaut. We have to realize what the U.S. women did here. This is not only win a gold medal, but to be able to beat Canada, who has drilled us time after time after again. The greatest win for U.S. women's hockey in the history of the Story program.
And we are both well-known female international hockey historians, so you can take that to the bank.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I quit school because there's too much reading.
Tonight, the NBA
That ain't why.
is back, and
Oh, I
the
had a
new
job
look
offer.
Cavs are hosting the Wizards. Cleveland has won 4 straight, and LeBron is averaging 30 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 13 assists over that stretch. CC, what are you looking for from the Cavs tonight?
I look for the Cavs to continue to make changes. People would think that, oh, they're going to start a couple games before the All-Star break. Let's go where they were in Cleveland, what we saw in OKC. But Ty Lue said something very important yesterday. He said that they have 22 practice sessions scheduled, shoot-around scheduled, but they are going to be structured practices now compared to shoot-arounds, and that is totally different, Sarah, than you would know against the norm of an NBA regiment. The walkthrough, the shoot-arounds are basically walkthroughs, and now they're going to have practice. So I look for them to continue to develop. Let's not think of what they're going to be now, but it's more importantly what they're going to be in May.
The practice thing's important because NBA shoot-arounds are essentially like the college class that you just have to show up for. They take attendance to make sure you go. A lot of times they're doing shoot-around just so the guys have something on their schedule so they can't stay out all night.
Get them out of bed.
Get them out of bed, get them there. The Cavs are known to not do a lot of practicing, but with all these new players, they have to. The other thing to watch for, LeBron, very odd for him. He got a lot of flack last year because, God forbid, he sat out 6 games. He has played every single game this year. He has played more minutes than any player in the league. If they do get in a good rhythm, maybe he could take a few games off before Kevin Love gets back. They won't be able to do that if they don't keep up what they were doing right before the All-Star break.
Excellent point. All right, moving on. Speaking of taking some games off, the Kawhi Leonard saga has taken another turn. He's reportedly been in New York during the All-Star break seeking a second opinion on his injured quad. This, despite being medically cleared to return. And now Gregg Popovich says he'd be surprised if Kawhi returns this season. Nick, how bad have things gotten between Kawhi and the Spurs?
Bad enough that I am seeing the player do something I'm not used to seeing a Spurs player do, and the coach do something I'm not used to seeing Gregg Popovich do. What did the player do? Well, he went outside the organization, went and got a second opinion. The player who has been cleared medically by the team.
And that's significant, too, because it would be different if they were telling them we need another 4 weeks of rehab or we don't believe that you've progressed enough. They're saying, no, you're clear to go to work. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not clear to go to work.
That's a key point. Like, if you think of Chris Bosh, he went outside of the Heat organization to get another opinion. Why? Because the Heat were telling him you can't play.
Right. They would not clear him.
It's when the team is saying you can play, and the player's like, I'm going to go try to find a doctor that says I actually can't play, that's a bad sign. And it's also a bad sign when Gregg Popovich, to me, when he says, quote, it's going to be a pretty tough decision how late to bring somebody back. That, to me, is Gregg Popovich, through the media, letting everyone know, including Kawhi Leonard, just so you know, if your plan was, with a week left in the year, to come back and say I'm good for the playoffs, I might say no to that. I might tell you, no. We got 23 games left, but we have a shorter deadline for you as far, and now most teams, by the way, if Kevin Love, let's just say after he broke his hand, that he was supposed to be back midway through the second round of the playoffs, I think the Cavs would be like, nah, it's been too long. You just shut it down. You will take your best player or one of your best players whenever you can get him. The fact that the Spurs are putting a deadline out there, the fact that Kawhi, and Chris, you can talk about this more, has, for on and off the court reasons, seemingly been unhappy in San Antonio the last few years. All of these things are a great departure from what we're used to seeing in San Antonio.
And it's very surprising that Popovich, because they've been on from an injury standpoint for years, one of the top as far as recovery, cutting-edge medicine, the training staff, what they did for players. And they always erred on the side of, we'll keep them out longer and allow full time to recovery. Also, Popovich, the first one to start resting players, taking guys out for coach's decision, not flying guys. So from a medical standpoint, they've been on the other end of the spectrum compared to where they are right now. It really lets you know that there is something that is real between Kawhi and his camp, and San Antonio. The thing I think is very interesting is what happened last year. After they made the huge trade for LaMarcus Aldridge, he came there, not as successful, had to change his game compared to what he was used to playing in Portland. He wanted to get traded. He wanted out of San Antonio, but Popovich told him simply, what, Nick?
Said, yeah, go find us, make the trade for Anthony Davis, and we'll do it. You know what I mean? Go find us a better player than you, and we'll do it.
So now looking when Tony Parker's only got a little bit of basketball, Ginobili's only got a little bit of basketball, the only piece they can build around is Kawhi, that potentially their top two players have wanted out of San Antonio the last 2 years. I believe that the location of San Antonio and the lack of free agents who want to come to San Antonio, I believe that's had an effect on Kawhi. And also from a branding standpoint, say, well, branding Kawhi, he's a quiet guy. But when you have the top echelon making $20 and $30 million from a shoe deal standpoint, and he's with Brandon Jordan, and they say he's a marquee guy, but he's only making $2 million. He doesn't get the visibility that Russ gets. He doesn't get the economics that Russ gets. Harden, all these guys.
All the top players in the league. Like, that's something fans, I think, overestimate how much the shoe deal is for everyone but a select few. Like, Kawhi shoot, every other top six guy, LeBron, KD, Russ, Harden, Steph, are over $25 million a year in shoe money.
Right, and also a feature. Either they're featured as a shoe or they're the feature part of the company. And him, as long as they have Russ at Jordan Brand, Kawhi will always be second, third, or fourth from a priority standpoint.
And the key part to me is the Spurs medical staff saying you can play, and Kawhi saying, no, I can't. I just want a quick history lesson for basketball fans or sports fans out there. The San Antonio Spurs won the championship in Tim Duncan's second year. He was already basically one of, if not the best player in the league by then. The next year, he plays 74 games. They're the defending champs. The Lakers' little mini dynasty hadn't started yet. Duncan hurts his meniscus, and Gregg Popovich makes the decision. You're not playing through it. This is with a week left in the year. You're not playing through it. We are shutting you down. We are having surgery. And Popovich at the time was not the made man he is now and took some flack for it. The Spurs didn't have 5 championships. They had the one under Pop. And he said, we are more worried. We are not worried about defending our title. We are worried about the long run of this man's career. So the idea that Pop would do that when they were the defending champs with Tim Duncan, and then all of a sudden force Kawhi out there, have the medical staff would clear him prematurely, that's not their history. So I'm sure Pop believes his medical staff. Like, I've told him to be cautious. They say he can play. He went and got a second opinion. We don't know what they said, and Kawhi is still not playing. That's problematic.
We can see how this affects the Spurs, but how does it affect the rest of the Western Conference, CC?
Oh, man, the Spurs, they got championship pedigree. And you put Kawhi with Gasol, Aldridge, what they do to Golden State, they bang them in the paint. They kill them on the boards. They are not like the rest of the NBA that tries to space, spread it, let's match them on the three-point line. No, they go at it with power, and Kawhi is able to offset KD, not only on the defensive end, but on the offensive end. So you're talking about a championship caliber team that is taken out of the race for being a legitimate contender.
They've played 50 games without Kawhi Leonard this year. They're 30-20. So even without him, they can make the playoffs. Even without him, they might be able to win a round in the playoffs. But you lose Kawhi Leonard, you lose your chance at winning a championship. You lose your chance at getting through the Western Conference. Like, period, point blank. And that would be true for any team in the league if they lose their best player. Any NBA team, you lose your best player, your championship aspirations, however small or big they were, are gone. So if Kawhi, if he does have a deadline, and if he doesn't come back, the Spurs is a title contender this year, that's over.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about titles coming up. LeBron James has some words for Adam Silver. Hear it from him next on First Things First.
The co-commissioner talking about the real.
Yeah, see, that was like Jenna. See, Jenna got sick on Monday. We was like, hey, Jenna.